Hey guys, Mike here. So today's cult classic review is 2003's Oldboy, starring Min-sik as Dae-su. In Oldboy, after being kidnapped and imprisoned for 15 years, Dae-su is released, only to find that he must find his captors within 5 days. And so we have Oldboy. So guys, this is a movie in this series that before watching and reviewing it today, I had not seen it before. Though that's not strictly true. I did watch the Spike Lee American 2013 version before watching this one. Though I did watch that one a couple of years ago, so I'm not exactly fresh and I can't remember every single thing that happens in it. But in any case, I had not seen the original South Korean version. But from what I've heard from people, the American version is vastly inferior to the original Korean version. And I was wondering why this was. Was it because that, you know, all remakes are bad and that anything that tries to imitate the original is therefore bad? Or whether this is actually legitimately worse than the original one? So, I guess I had to watch it and find out. In any case, what did I think of Oldboy, the original? I mean, I kind of have to get this out of the way. Obviously, the biggest hurdle for Oldboy as an English viewer is the fact that you have to be reading for the whole time. Now, there was an option to have this movie dubbed, so they'd be speaking English the whole time, but I thought, nah, you can't do that. You have to hear the original Korean. Otherwise, what's the point? You might as well just watch the American version. Plus, you never really get good dubs, you know. You don't exactly get the same character or expression that you would from the original actors. But in any case, reading subtitles for the whole time isn't a massive hurdle. It's just something that you do have to kind of prepare yourself for. You have to pay attention to every single word, because if you look away for a second, obviously you're not going to know what's going on. But in any case, the movie itself, all the performances all round, really good, excellent performances. Min-sik especially was really good in this film. Now, I might have seen him in other things, I'm not really sure, but as it stands in Oldboy, he was excellent. Starts off as a really unsympathetic character, then he's put in a situation which you wouldn't wish upon your worst enemy, and then as the movie goes on, you start to warm to his character a lot more and understand the struggle that he's been through. And a particularly good acting scene from him comes towards the end, where he has his massive breakdown scene, which was just phenomenal. Now, obviously as well, Josh Brolin as the same character. Now, Josh Brolin is an amazing actor, and personally, I didn't think there was anything wrong with his performance in the Spike Lee version, but I'm of the opinion I don't think he captured the same amount of tortured dread that Min-sik did. I mean, I would say that Josh Brolin's version did look like more of an unstoppable force than Min-sik's one, but really all this training they did in their prison really comes into action during the corridor fight scene. But I gotta say, this scene, obviously especially in the Korean version, was just incredible. The scene looks brilliantly unchoreographed. Like, everyone's just exhausted, everyone's just throwing wild punches, and it just looks barely scripted at all. Though obviously in a scene where you're directing one person against 20, it can be quite a challenging task. And obviously, director Chan-wook, like the rest of the movie, did an excellent job on this scene. Though I'd say my only real issue with watching the original version now is that I knew all the twists. I knew what was going to happen, I knew when it was going to happen. And honestly, I really wish that I hadn't watched the American version before watching this one, because everything about this movie is excellent. The characters, the story, the direction, all of it really builds up to this insane, horrifying ending. And knowing what was going to happen really did take a lot away from it. Not in a quality standpoint, more for an impact standpoint. Though Chan-wook and Spike Lee's Oldboys are basically the same film, they do have quite a lot of key differences. The original version is a lot more subtle than the American version. The villain is definitely much better in Chan-wook's original than in Spike Lee's American remake. Because in the original one, the villain has such a commanding presence. He manages to control the scene and just, like, knows what to do, and he's just an absolutely really intense villain. And at no point in any scene do you think he doesn't know what's going to happen next, or he hasn't planned every move accordingly. Really good, interesting villain. Whereas in the Spike Lee version, he was very much a cartoon villain. Though he had near enough the same motivations and the same plan, it just came across as very, like, cartoony. Just, you can't really take the character seriously. It doesn't seem like anyone that, well, it just wasn't really that good, to be fair. And as well as motivation, that one felt a lot less personal. Because though in essence, the reason in which the story takes place is more or less the same, the actual catalysts are a little bit different. In the original Korean version, it's definitely a lot more personal. And in the American one, though it is still related to the villain, it definitely doesn't hit hard as home as much. You can still understand why each of them would do what they did, but in the Korean one, it's just a lot more personal. And I'd say kind of the biggest issue with the American one is that it tries to be a bit too grounded. Because in the Korean one, they have weird imagery, hypnotism, stuff like that. Whereas in the American one, it's just basically super grounded and it tries to be as realistic as it possibly can. But in making it more realistic, you lose a lot of the charm that the original one had. Basically, as a whole, I can see why a lot of people really don't like the American Oldboy compared to the original one. And I think at the end of the day, what the real biggest problem is, the original one didn't need to be remade. Honestly, I can't think of a single good remake. The only one I can think of off the top of my head is 2012's Dread, though I'd call that one more of a new movie with the same IP as opposed to a straight up reboot. So basically, I don't think the American Oldboy is terrible. It's just not as good as the Korean one. The original one has just a lot more going for it. It stands out a lot more, it has better characters, the fight scene is just so much better than in the American one. It's just a better movie in general. So guys, would I consider Oldboy a personal cult classic, and would I recommend that you guys should see it? Honestly, I really liked Oldboy. My only problem was that because I saw the American version first, when it came to seeing this one, a lot of the suspense or twists were just taken away and I just couldn't really recapture those same moments. Because unfortunately you can't unspoil a movie. But nevertheless, this is still an amazing film, which I can definitely see why so many people consider a cult classic. It's just for me personally, I wouldn't consider this one a personal cult classic. A great movie nonetheless, just not really one that I hold in a special place in my heart. But still, I can see why so many other people love this film. But as for whether or not you guys should see it, I would still definitely recommend that you should check this one out. If you haven't seen either version, the Korean or the American one, just watch the Korean one. Or at least make sure you watch that one first if you intend on watching the American one. It'll be a much better experience for yourself. And honestly, I really wish that's how I'd viewed this movie. But unfortunately, I saw the American one before I saw the Korean one. Okay guys, that's my cult classic review of Oldboy. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Whatever you think, drop it in the comments below. Until next time, I've been Michael. See ya!